in a culture which does not have this subtle understanding of this dance and this dynamic connection between the lunar and the solar energies, where the solar energies, yogically speaking, is the culmination of all the processes. It's the very, very byproduct and outcome of all spiritual evolution. Enlightenment itself, the highest form in its essence, is that what allows the trickling down of Soma, lunar qualities that sustains everything, lunar qualities that interpenetrates deep into the soil, these lunar qualities that makes truly the body divine, not hypothetically, not symbolically, but in its actuality. There is this, for example, expression that all the tendencies have no choice but to drown when the Soma begins to flow. Whatever themes we have, whatever have been chosen as a theme within the various themes and that we have been pursuing, sometimes departing and to come back, I feel perhaps reading another excerpt, a short passage from the forthcoming book, will give us that yet another entrance, yet another point of view. And let's see where it takes us, okay? So, it's the part towards the very end, towards the culmination of the book. It's a subchapter loosely entitled Lunar Intelligence and the Culture of Soma. In the Tantric vision, lunar intelligence is not a poetic notion, but a concrete vibrational mode of consciousness, one that has long been eclipsed by the solar predominance of will, logic, and conquest. The restoration of Soma is inseparable from the reawakening of this lunar mode, which does not strive but receives, does not analyze but reflects. If solar intelligence is that of discrimination, structure, and light-giving power, then lunar intelligence is that of synthesis, diffusion, and resonance. One burns, the other cools. One moves outward, the other draws in. Together they complete the arc of consciousness. In the Rig Veda, Soma is the source of Meda, a form of intuitive intelligence that arises not through accumulation of knowledge, but through spontaneous cognition. This Meda is celebrated in the Meda Suktam, where the goddess is invoked as the power of retention, subtle knowing and deep nourishment of the mind. In Tantric Śaivism, this corresponds with the state of pratibha, sudden flash of insight arising from the heart, unmediated by the reason. Soma, then, is a matrix from which such insights arise and through which they are stabilized. In a culture saturated with soul excess, speed, abstraction, rationale, overstimulation, the Soma principle becomes suppressed. Its qualities of coolness, depth, reflection, and restfulness are often mistaken for lethargy or passivity. But this is a grievous misreading. The lunar mode is not withdrawal from life. It is life lived in equipoise. It is the intelligence that nourishes the very soil of cognition. Without Soma, our perception becomes brittle. We may see clearly, but what we see does not feed us. The sight lacks depth. The insight lacks fullness. The cognition lacks taste. The Tantras speak repeatedly of the necessity to cultivate Soma as a prerequisite for the highest stages of Samavesha, the fusion of individual awareness with the Absolute. Swami Lakshmanju often referred to this as tasting the nectar of one's own self. It is not merely a metaphor. The sweetness is real and arises in the passage from intellectual understanding to direct embodied knowing. And for this, the nervous system must be steeped in lunar qualities: softness, openness, steadiness, and trust. Herein lays a profound teaching. Soma is not only the reward for transformation, it is its culture. The body must be made hospitable to the intelligence. Its rhythms must be slowed, its fibers made receptive. This requires not just spiritual practice in the narrow sense, but a whole reorientation of life. The cycle of waking and sleep, the intake of food, the exposure to sensory stimuli, even the pace of one's speech and thought, all must be realigned in a sacred rhythm of Soma. This is not merely lifestyle adjustment, it is metaphysical hygiene. In this sense, Soma becomes the seed of a culture, not as ideology or institution, but as a field of refined living. A culture of Soma is one in which perception itself becomes sacred, where the smallest act, drinking water, breathing, walking, shimmers with the radiance of the real. In this culture, slowness is not regression, but refinement. Silence is not emptiness, but fullness. Nourishment becomes the highest form of wisdom. It is the moon's reply to the fervent quest for transcendence. Descend, taste, and be nourished by your own being. Many have sought this in communal or monastic forms. Others cultivate it quietly in the inward rhythms of contemplation, in the restorations of sensory purity. The real indicator is not ideology but vibrational signature. A culture steeped in Soma exudes serenity, poise, and a certain luminosity of presence. Its measure is not in claim of attainment, but in the way a being sits, breathes, listens. This lunar culture cannot be superimposed by will. It flowers from within. When the fires have matured and the body becomes translucent enough to receive the downward grace of the goddess, then Soma is not only within, it is around. The space thickens with presence. The world glows. Sound gains texture. Light turns liquid. And the heart is satisfied without seeking. This is the subtle intelligence the Vedas sang of. This is the sweetness the rishis pressed out of their being. This is the culture of Soma, not an archaic remnant, but a beckoning future, already waiting within the architecture of the human nervous system, ready to be awakened not by striving, but by the quieting of all noise, until one only the flow of sacred outpouring remains. So, this seems like a fitting invitation, simply a reminder of sorts. a reminder of sorts of where we have inevitably come to realize that this, what the whole alchemy of transformation of consciousness that is experienced on individual level, with all its various different takes throughout different traditions, spoken exclusively from the point of view of that existential quest, is given a chance for it to be fully reevaluated for what it is, because it's not viewed here deliberately from that vantage point of individual life, but rather that our individual life and our collective state of affairs are interlinked and interdependent. So the culture we live in is the culture that has been collectively created, woven out of these seemingly individual aspirations somehow, one way or another. And the time has come when it is to be utterly and entirely restructured, reevaluated, if we are to have any civilizational consensus in terms of where really all this unfolds, where this really proceeds. Therefore, of course, in a culture which does not have this subtle understanding of this dance and this dynamic connection between the lunar and the solar energies, where the solar energies, yogically speaking, is the culmination of all the processes. It's the very, very byproduct and outcome of all spiritual evolution. Enlightenment itself, the highest form in its essence, is that what allows the trickling down of Soma, lunar qualities that sustains everything, lunar qualities that interpenetrates deep into the soil, these lunar qualities that makes truly the body divine, not hypothetically, not symbolically, but in its actuality. There is this, for example, expression that all the tendencies have no choice but to drown when the Soma begins to flow, as the system gets saturated with these lunar qualities. So of course, if culture, whatever that happens to be currently, the driving force behind ideological, let's say, alignment towards the highest form of living exemplified by God, and the custodians of respective traditions, if they do not operate with this knowledge, then what is being offered is nothing but doom and gloom. It seems Armageddon is the only solution. It seems that only through the calamity and cataclysm that somehow all this can be restored, because that would issue the return of the so-called whoever is the Savior, the Messiah. Yet here it is spoken in terms of that universal understanding, how in the transformation of individual, which is also can be simply said human consciousness, that what has always been divine is being given back to its true status. And it is not given through some kind of metaphysical concept that is adopted mentally. No, it is given through the transformation down to the cellular level, and that's what Soma here represents. So we can apply this also to the culture at large, at least as a model, at least as a supposition, a proposal. There is another way that our civilizational consensus can be lined up, not towards these competitive qualities which, effectively speaking, by a lot of psychologists have been continuously reminded us as an outcome of the age, or rather ages, when we lived in a continued state of flight or fight syndromes. That is the walnut-sized reptilian brain, which basically instructed all our actions for a prolonged period of time, driven by survival instincts, when our lives was completely at the mercy of that, what here is represented by whoever can just drop down from somewhere, the branch or the rock, and snap our neck in a spur of the moment. Hence all this kind of like natural propensity for the trapezius muscle to contract is all carried by us still. Just ask any therapist why the contraction is experienced by tension in that region, and the answer would be given. Because this muscle is corresponding for the, what is it called? Brace position. Just as in a flight, you are asked if there is some kind of imminent possibility for too much turbulence or what have you not, position brace, you go down and you contract this, reducing the possibility of an open neck to end up in the jaws of the T-Rex, just utilizing a bit of the creative license here. And yet, there has been an extraordinary evolution. Why did we build this civilization? Why did we build this place where there's a possibility to keep warm inside the dwellings in the cold climate? Why? Why have all this? Why have we made life possible? So to free some space, some possibility for relaxing these reptilian instincts, so that there is a field of energy opens up for something else. Yes, for the flow of energy towards the prefrontal lobes. So we are no longer subjected to just even the intermediate part of the brain, which the bean shape covers, sits on top of the reptilian walnut-shaped one, which corresponds to all the emotive states. But we are equipped with this, yes, indeed, prefrontal lobes. They don't have any purpose. They don't have any purpose from the point of view of our current civilization or civilizational consensus. We don't achieve in the world through prefrontal lobes. We transcend the world. And yet all the peace and all the equanimity, all the equipoise is where it is placed, where it is radiates from, where we transcend, where we literally bring heaven on earth, where the earth and heaven meet. The prefrontal lobes is that part of the brain which is in alignment with the vibrations of the heart. This is the role of the prefrontal lobes, where the frequency of disparity is now has the chance to be reconciled. That's the meaning of being human. It simply seems fitting to me to bring this, what the book somehow inevitably had to address towards the end, and this is the main expansion where at first the main, maybe substantial part of the book was all based on what was conveyed throughout that Kundalini course offered online, had to undergo transformation and expansion. So that expansion here is to offer as much as possible insights, aligning it with the deepest, let's say, aspects within the tradition which are hidden and otherwise not so out there on a pedestrian level of spiritual discourses and dialogues, to make it truly available, to juxtapose and align everyone's individual process with the bigger picture. This is the main incentive behind the Kundalini book, which obviously cannot be considered to be ever the last word, but only an attempt to give some reflections on inexplicable